It's very, very interesting. You know, sometimes the argument is to make real estate more affordable, we should make developers develop that, sit and land bank on their assets. And the reason they're land banking is material flow. The cost of things to build is too prohibitive to bring stock to the marketplace. Welcome to the Urban Property Investor. I'm your host, Sam Saggers, here to help you crack the code of real estate wealth. Today, we're going to dig into capital flow. It's an important conversation on how real estate works. Real estate is not a static investment class. It moves around, and there are some ways to find growth in the marketplace. And we'll have a bit of a chat about how capital actually influences real estate. Welcome back, regulars. You know the drill. Play the program in double speed, get your life back. And of course, all the episodes I've done are lessons on real estate. So feel free to go back in time and find yourself a lesson that rocks your boat. But hey, I hope you're well. I'm well. It's almost the end of the year, the end of the real estate year. We're getting closer week by week. And of course, I don't know, the best thing about working in the real estate industry is really January, because it is very, very quiet. So I am fortunate enough to really take off most of January, which is the one thing I love about real estate. It's kind of seasonal. And of course, you can do some pretty good deals in January because it is seasonal. But I tend to just, I don't know, go somewhere and float. So I can't wait to float. I'm thinking about floating. But we've still got work to do. So we never know if the show's good till we get to the end. But let's have a chat about capital. And last week's episode, I did an episode on really circular economics, the idea that we can buy some real estate, and if the area improves on itself, it creates growth. And the better the governance of an area, the better the performance of the real estate. And really, that's a form of capital flow. And I guess last week's episode kind of inspired this week's episode, which is really the idea that if we can work out where money's going, we can work out where capital growth is going to unfold. Capital flow creates capital growth because when money enters the market, it increases demand for assets. So it drives prices up. And so wherever we can see change and money flowing, we can start to see an increase in value around the place. And that money, if you like, comes from all sorts of sources. It comes from home buyers, it comes from investors, it comes from banks. It's going to come from the great wealth transformation of inheritance. It comes from Australia's superannuation funds, it comes from government spending, foreign capital, surplus cash, which enters the market from both cash and or leverage through credit or the credit markets, creates a flow of money. And where that flow of money goes, you end up finding a level of growth. And that money can come from a government level of flow. It can come from a bank level of flow. It can come from a mum and dad's opting to prefer to live somewhere and own real estate flow. And so when we think about flow, we have levers of flow. And so there are 5 levers of capital flow. There's physical capital flow, which is material capital flow. There is gradient capital flow. There is circular capital flow, harmonic and intelligence capital flow. So there's 5 flows which are out in society. And really, remember, real estate is not static. It is looking for the flow. People are looking for the flow because people quite often are looking for deals in the real estate world. So material flow is the movement of tangible value. And really what that movement of tangible value can be explained through is you take money and you buy something in return with that money, and that is physical. And of course, as a property investor, you can do material flow strategies. You can build something, you can renovate something, you can subdivide something, you can do pre-construction. You're taking money and you're turning it into a physical flow of output, material flow. Gradient flow is the movement of capital through delta, through price differentials. And that creates price growth where you can find gradient flow, you can find underpricing, and of course, overpricing. And it's a bit like a river. They call it capital flow or gradient flow because it flows down river. And again, if we are going down river, we can find typically affordability where there's more aggregate demand, which pushes up prices. Then we've got circular flow, the movement of value within a system, creating regenerational wealth. And I spoke about this last time when we talked about the economics of Tebow, that people vote on their feet. And when people go to a neighborhood and that neighborhood is well looked after, has good governance, all of a sudden you get 2 effects, the halo effect and the neighborhood effect of people wanting to stay and more people wanting to come. And the neighborhood just keeps on getting better and better and better and better. And that's why we've got neighborhoods today where houses are worth $25 million on the same street. The area has just regenerated constantly, and you get this capital flow of regeneration. And of course, harmonic flow is structural flow. It's really the idea that capital can be balanced or rebalanced and new growth created through structural change. And I'm a big believer in harmonic flow when it comes to what next for Australian real estate. And the final flow is intelligence flow, which is the movement of knowledge and skill. And obviously, that movement of knowledge and skill is very much humanistic, but it can also be material, whereby a CBD is created or a new business park is created. And that has this intelligence effect on more people wanting to live closer to that workplace. And perhaps they've got high-paying jobs, and those high-paying jobs then link to the real estate world and have a growth effect on actual physical property. So real estate's about understanding how value moves, not just where it actually sits. And so really capital flow, or the 5 levers, if you like, is just a framework to interpret property markets, because they're kind of living systems, if you like. And so you can get property markets which are past their use by date. You can get property markets which are sleepy. You can get property markets which have no capital flow. And of course, you often see that out there in the world where markets are just overlooked because there is no flow occurring. There is no building occurring. There is no regeneration occurring. There is no flow. And so typically when you go to some of these off the beaten track small towns in Australia, you'll notice there's no capital inflow into those marketplaces. So property isn't static. It's part of a moving ecosystem, and value constantly shifts between markets, demographics, and infrastructure and yields. It moves all the time. It constantly shifts between people, and we've got a shift on at the moment with people. You've got a big first home buyer boost going on at the moment. And you can see the value has shifted to those people who can do 5% deposits down and get into the market with a low amount of capital. So that will shift price growth to the bottom end of the market, the most affordable end of the real estate market. If you give people who have a limited budget a boost, you're going to boost the bottom end of the marketplace. And so value's constantly shifting. And if there were to be more rate cuts, you would probably see the the upgrader market start to get value sent to it, because people like to upgrade when rates are really, really low. So remember, 5 economic flows. You've got the material flow, which is tangible, assets, supply and demand, how much is being built, how much is being absorbed. It's material flow. You've got gradient flow, which is where the directional movement towards opportunity is. Then you've got circular flow, which is an area self-generating itself. And that's what I spoke about last week. You got harmonic flow, structural shifts, and you've got intelligence flow, where humans will innovate and change and drive growth. And so sometimes they all overlap, and you end up getting a very good, a good outcome in a property marketplace, because you've got transformation. And you can think about, this stuff using real examples, right? So let's talk about the Byron Bay effect. I know we sort of spoke about that last time, but the Byron Bay effect is just this little village called Byron Bay. It's the most beautiful place on earth. And really, it got a lot of capital flow into it, which pushed the property market up, doubled really, really quickly in value. Why? Because it had multiple flows of money coming to it, multiple flows of capital. It had intelligence flow, smart people with high-paying jobs, but who could work from home, moved to Byron Bay, became a thing. My lawyer lives in Byron Bay. He's got a practice in Sydney. If he ever wants to come to Sydney, it's a 2-hour transfer from Ballina to Sydney. But he lives in Byron Bay, makes Sydney lawyer wages, and his intelligence flow has created a capital flow into Byron Bay. Harmonic flow, the idea that a structural shift happened, COVID happened, and you had all this money come into Byron Bay. Byron Bay's gets a lot of people renovating their beautiful homes and upgrading, and you get this circular flow happening there, where the houses are just getting better and bigger and nicer, and you get this capital inflow into the neighborhood. And at the start of sort of COVID, it was arguably underpriced, so you got this directional gradient flow. And of course, the tangible capital of money going into the market to improve the look and feel of the neighborhood is a real thing. But also you've got a fairly limited amount of stock that can be produced in that marketplace. So you've got this kind of material flow, which really it's money going into the existing properties and a very few amount of brand new properties. So material flow is the movement of tangible value through material things, and real estate is a material thing. And so you can understand that through, for example, creating physical wealth. You're taking money out of the bank, you're getting leverage. In real estate, you take $100,000 out of the bank, all of a sudden you can borrow, $1 million. You're swapping that cash for something physical. The physical thing you're getting is real estate. And the tangible capital in motion can be created through strategies, renovating, building a property, subdividing a property. You can create material wealth through that form of capital flow. And of course, capital flow is not only from us, the investor, it comes from developers, it comes from funders, it comes from government. They are part of the ecosystem, which is not static, of building things and providing land and rezoning things. And so the more control of the material things in the market, the more you control potential. And so why developers can become very, very wealthy is they control material flow. They control material flow. We as smaller investors can become very wealthy as well if we control material flow. If we buy a property which needs a build on it, or we buy a property which mathematically can work for small lot subdivision, or we buy a property which, we delay the settlement 3 years and get a result that way, we are controlling the land, and you control the potential when you control the land. And so really, that's kind of the model of material flow. And material flow is also influences growth from supply and demand. And obviously, if you've got too much supply and not enough demand, material flow fails to ignite. If you've got the polar opposite, too much demand, not enough supply, you get material flow exploding. And so again, like, the two forces dictate price movement across the country. And at the moment, though there is a bit of rezoning going on, there's still a big undersupply, which is unfolding. And again, like, you can track things like transactions, development approvals, development deliveries. You can track all of that stuff to work out where material flow is flowing. And again, like, some marketplaces might have too much material flow going on, which is too much supply. And so when there's an overabundance of material flow, it can have an adverse effect of real estate going down. And so it's very, very interesting. Sometimes the argument is to make real estate more affordable, we should make developers develop that, sit and land bank on their assets. And the reason they're land banking is material flow. The cost of things to build is too prohibitive to bring stock to the marketplace, so they have to wait until they can press go on the actual cost of labor and services. So things cost something and it gets turned into a physical value, which is real estate. And so we can make money out of material flow, which is pretty good. The next flow, as I alluded to, is actually gradient flow. Gradient flow is the movement of capital through opportunity differential. This creates price growth. And, I'm on record, telling people to buy in Perth, telling people to buy in Brisbane well before those markets shot up in value. And you can go back and look at my podcast when I was explaining to people, jump into the Perth market and jump into the Brisbane market. It was well before those marketplaces were ready to go. And so what was I studying? I was studying gradient flow, the movement of capital through opportunity differential. And so quite often you basically can find a marketplace which has a floor price. And really today, the floor price, probably the biggest marketplace at the moment, is Melbourne. Melbourne has a floor price cheaper than 5 years ago, which is gradient flow. Eventually, the market will go, wow, that's inexpensive for what it is, and you will get the movement of capital coming into the marketplace. And a lot of it is the price delta. And what happens is a marketplace will do nothing for 5, 6, 7, 8 years, and then it'll go on a run for 3, 4 years, and then it'll do nothing, and then it'll go on a run. And again, like gradient flow is just the idea that there is a movement of capital through opportunity differential. And what happens for people is the more capital you've got, the more calm you are about putting money in a marketplace which is due for gradient flow. And you're not like, I've got to make money by tomorrow morning, or, this whole thing called property investments, like a disaster. The more money you have, the more you follow gradient flow, because you are looking for the medium-term, long-term results of a big uplift. And so when you don't have a lot of money, you tend to go against the grain, and you are looking for instant equity from a marketplace which is just red hot at the moment. And so there's no right or wrong. It's just the imbalance is what gradient flow looks for. And it's easy to find the imbalances. You can just look at the median price of real estate, and you can start to work out where gradient flow is. And gradient flow happens not only from a major city, having price delta differential between each other. You get the ripple of real estate from suburb to suburb, from local government area to local government area. One becomes more expensive, so people go, well, I can just live 3 kilometers down the road. You get gradient flow that way. You also get gradient flow where people go, well, from a geo arbitrage lifestyle perspective, I'll go live in a city an hour from the major city. I'll get a much nicer home, and I'll get this real estate feeder city ripple to places like Wollongong and Newcastle, Central Coast, Geelong, Ballarat, Toowoomba, Sunshine Coast. You get this gradient flow. They're a bit cheaper, so people end up going there. And also infrastructure creates a level of growth corridors. And so I've talked about this through sector urbanization, the idea that new sectors create with it new opportunities of where to live and how to live. And you get this kind of people realignment to these kind of gradient flow marketplaces. And so when I'm studying real estate, I'm studying material flow, I'm studying gradient flow. And really, I'm trying to ride a lot of the gradient flow, which is identifying undervalued suburbs with improving fundamentals. And that's really what you're looking for: emerging economies, emerging neighborhoods, places which are going to be invested into. And of course, then you've got circular flow, which is the movement within a ecosystem of things regenerating. And it's kind of the butterfly effect, or the circular flow effect. It's the process of where capital feeds itself. And this is where you find really nice neighborhoods just get more and more and more expensive because their ecosystem strengthens itself. And I spoke about that last podcast. So if you didn't listen to the last podcast, you're more than welcome to go back and listen again. People vote with their feet. It's the Tebow hypothesis, effectively that a good amount of people choosing to live in a good community with better services, schools, and livability. You'll get people reinvest in the community spirit. They'll reinvest really a circular flow of more income coming in, more capital coming in. People will look after the neighborhood, and the councils will then also look after the neighborhood, and you end up getting this infrastructure and livability culture attracts people, and people attract capital. And so the market just gets better and better and better. And then we've got harmonic flow. Harmonic flow is the movement of structural balance, and it can create stability or instability. And so effectively, where if a market's in sync, it has good structural balance. But balance has changed a lot through demographical shifts. And so if we think about structural change of money since the 70s, in the 1970s, you had single income households, which became double income households. That structural shift in capital flow of two income households doubled the value of real estate. You had the deregulation of the banks in the 1990s, which doubled the real estate value because more capital could come out of more banking institutions. It wasn't bottlenecked. You had mining boom one, skill migration, wage growth. That mining boom was a huge boom for the country, a massive, massive boom. It doubled wages across the country. We all went from earning 50 grand to 100 grand. It doubled real estate values. Then, of course, we had, COVID, a massive spatial transformation of how we live, work, and play. And you had a doubling of value in real estate for the most part across the country. And of course, we have a structural change ahead of us, which is the intergenerational wealth transfer, which again is a harmonic flow of change of real estate. And so the harmonic or harmony can be influenced by policy, political influences, and governments can control the rhythm. And so this is why we call them the menace, because if they let real estate be more of a free market, it would, it would be more harmonious. And so, for example, the first homeowner grant is disrupting harmony. It creates a different level of demand for new people coming into the marketplace, which otherwise would not enter the marketplace. And so the government is a bit of a menace when it controls the rhythm, and it can control the rhythm of planning reforms, where it spends money. And so you get this harmonic flow. And again, the social dimension of a harmonic flow is generally community desirability and livability and social, cohesion compounds financial capital, which is really, again, like the more harmony, the more circular flow marketplaces gets. And probably the final flow is intelligence flow, which is the movement of knowledge and skills, which can affect real estate areas. And again, like the more people earn for a living, the more people congregate as high income earners around an area, you get this gentrification effect. And really, intelligence flow is just the change of social status of a neighborhood from one class to another. And that is the concept quite often of gentrification. Gentrification, though you'd see a transfer of material capital flow, of the change of look and feel of housing, you'll also see the change of intelligence flow, which is the people themselves coming into a neighborhood, the flow of talent, where skilled professionals, congregate, whether they're high-income plumbers to, high-income bankers. You get this more sophisticated decision making about household preferences and housing preferences, and you get this human capital concentrating geographically in a place which pushes values up, sometimes known as the cluster effect. The cluster of collective intelligence pushes the value of real estate up. And so we've seen that traditionally, the cluster of collective intelligence quite often living close to CBDs where the high paying jobs are, and you get the corresponding value ecosystem around the CBD of expensive houses. Interesting with COVID, the cluster effect is now very much centered around lifestyle economics. So, that's why I'm very big on find the green space, find the social space, find the longevity space, and find the blue space, because it'll be, you will find capital growth from real estate from the cluster effect of collective intelligence in those neighborhoods. So remember, there's material flow, gradient flow, circular flow, harmonic flow, and intelligence flow, and each flow amplifies each other. Together, they form a matrix of capital growth, which helps people diagnose property. And again, like I'm on record going, well, I'm watching some people invest in neighborhoods based on price, but when I look at those neighborhoods, there is no material flow, there's no renovations happening, there's no circular flow, there's no reinvestment into the neighborhood from people within the neighborhood, there's no harmonic flow, there's no structural ambition to absorb the suburb, there's no intelligence flow, there's no smart people wanting to go and live in those areas. And so whilst those marketplaces seem very, very affordable, the social dimension of those neighborhoods tells me that there could be a limited amount of growth other than the idea of gradient flow, which is the market basically recognize that the real estate is cheap and you get this kind of crap real estate goes up because it is lifted when the market actually moves. And so, there is a bit of a flow compass around understanding this stuff. So, pre-growth, where we're going, okay, we want gradient flow to the best opportunity, which is, underpriced real estate. Really what you're trying to do is buy location, and location is driven through circular economics, harmonic economics, and intelligence economics. And so you might not get instant growth, but what you've bought is just a outstanding location that is not growing right now, but it's will grow based on when the market dynamics shift. But you've got this kind of like bulletproof asset, which is generationally exciting because it is weatherproof. It can go from a downsizer to an upgrader to a first home buyer. It can pass across generations. And really that's that circular economy effect of choosing a good location. And when the market starts to go up in value, it's really all about, the money sees the opportunity, you get this sort of material flow and gradient flow, and then it all happens again, circular, harmonic, and intelligence. So, I teach the 4X growth plan. It's a pretty good plan, and really it's a capital flow engine, if you like. The 4X growth plan just explains how capital multiplies and compounds through real estate. Each activity creates a capital flow. And so value shifts from creation to circulation to expansion to perception. And that is really the model of the 4X growth plan, which is just simple. Deal growth. You can create deal growth by taking money and putting it into the market and controlling a physical asset. You can improve the ability for that physical asset to create its own growth by adding value to it, whether it's delaying the settlement, building a property, whether it's actually just haggling a good price on the property to begin with, you can create the material flow out of money from the bank into a physical, tangible asset. Then you've got location growth, which is really gradient flow, the idea that capital moves around and it will find undervalued kind of suburbs. And so in my location growth, I'm always looking for emerging corridors, better suburbs that will look after and create better results. And you can also use circular flow, which is the idea of tightly held neighborhoods, monopoly-based neighborhoods, basically reinvesting in themselves. So you're looking for sort of two versions of flow. And then you've got market growth, which is harmonic flow, which is really all about where are the structural shifts in the market, geo lifestyle arbitrage. You've got, demographical shifts. You've got millennials buying real estate. You've got baby boomers cashing up and buying luxury apartments, and you're looking for this kind of market growth from that. And of course, the harmonic and intelligence flow is all linked to the final growth in the 4X growth plan, which is emotional growth. The more harmony a place has, the more intelligent the people are who want to go to the neighborhood and will push value on the asset. All right, folks, hopefully that made sense. Cheeky little flow framework there. I'll stop talking. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in to the Urban Property Investor. If you enjoyed the episode, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform or YouTube so you never miss an episode. I'd love for you to rate the show and share it with your family and friends. Let's spread the word about property investing. Stay connected between episodes on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And check out the rest of our podcast network at positivementor.com.au. And if you're serious about growing your property portfolio, don't miss our complimentary Property Investor Nights. Register now via the link in the show notes. See you next time.